Get your house in order, Larusso.
Who the hell you think you're talking to?
Bathroom's clean! Yeah, is there anything else you need me to do? I'm sorry, Sensei.
Sensei? Really? Oh my God, kid, I don't know what he's told you, but you shouldn't believe a word this guy says or you're gonna end up exactly like him. You and I, we aren't done.
Nor were they done. Welcome to No Mercy, a Cobra Kai Kickback. My name is Jacob Burrows, and I represent Miyagi-Do. And I'm so at peace with my inner self that I have the shiniest espresso machine that they had in the catalog standing in my kitchen. Ain't that a kick in the head?
Yes, my name is Jim Scampoli. I represent Cobra Kai because when I tried to apply for the military, I asked them about their karate program. They didn't know what I was talking about, so I just left. Anyway,
we're here to talk about episode 2 of Cobra Kai. What a great episode, Jim. I mean, I'm sorry if we're gonna start every episode of No Mercy like this, but ain't this a great episode, Jim?
yes, absolutely. Directed by John Hurwitz and Hayden Schlossberg, also written by Josh Heald, John Hurwitz, and Hayden Schlossberg. Those are like the showrunners, creators, the big brains behind the scenes here. And yeah, it plays really nice because we get to see more of Daniel's point of view a bit here. I mean, we're still with Johnny, of course. Johnny is our hero. This is Cobra Kai after all. But getting to see a little bit of Daniel's life. And I love this. I think it fits so well that there's enough of Miyagi there sometimes, but there's enough of just the Daniel we know from the movies. Like I mentioned, especially in Karate Kid Part 3, when we're seeing kind of the car salesman version of him and like the happy-go-lucky, always talking, just being that guy, the guy that made a friend immediately once he moved to his apartment place when he's just walking in. And he made in the first movie when he makes us that friend at the beginning. I mean, it didn't quite pan out, but he's just that type of guy. He's got that great life. Then, of course, he peeks over as he's driving to work and he sees Cobra Kai. Oh, no.
And it all comes rushing back. It's a great sort of reversal there where we see the absolute opposite of how Johnny's living, which is, of course, a reversal of where they were at the start of the first Karate Kid film. But yeah, I mean, it's also... It makes you think about when you're talking about it. They do so many things that are so on the nose in this show, but you just kind of go along with it. Like, ain't that a kick in the head? Like, they have that playing and talking about how great life is in a montage of him having the perfect American family. And then you see, I mean, ain't that a kick in the head? Obviously, in itself is very on the nose. But then also when he sees the Cobra Kai logo and it's like dun, like actual horrible music, and you're like, this is really not pulling any punches with that, but I feel like it deserves it, or it earns it by, just having great scenes that work in addition to the ridiculous things that they add to enhance the drama.
Well, I feel like with the things that are on the nose, they don't tip their hand too much. Like, it is on the nose, but it's on the nose just enough that it doesn't come off shitty. Because it might not be in this episode. Maybe it's or it isn't. Maybe it is in this episode when he's like, hey, do you want me to wash these windows a certain way? And he's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I love that.
It's just a fun enough nod, of course, to, Miyagi and Daniel. But it almost could. It's so close to being bad and eye-rolly. And I don't know, maybe we're just blinded because we're big fans of this show and someone else will tell us we're stupid. But I feel like they weave in and out just enough where it works. It works really well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true as far as references to the old films. But I was also thinking just in general, like stuff that would seem pretty cliche, like cinema-wise and how you put stuff together. You're still, because this whole opening sequence, it is like a car commercial. Like, it's like, here's this happy family, this happy-go-lucky guy. It's like so unbelievable the way he talks to his mechanics, and they do like fist bumps and like like all this stuff, and then like done Cobra Kai, dramatic, but it still works. I still like it.
And of course,
fact, I don't know how they pull it off is what I'm trying to get at, because I see a lot of shows that do that sort of thing and I roll my eyes, and maybe I'm just blinded, like you said.
And I think part of it also just kind of comes down to it fits the tone of the show. The show is already kind of winky and tongue in cheek, so you don't think that the makers of the show think they're like doing something great here. Like they understand, they're in on it. I guess that's what it feels like, which helps. And of course, yeah, when the Cobra Kai comes in and the flashbacks kick in with the quick, Johnny, and then getting pushed down and thrown off the cliff on his bike. When I love when he brings that up as well to bullies. Don't tell me about bullies. I was thrown off a cliff. And of course, the fateful match in the All Valley karate tournament, and fading to the Cobra Kai logo. There's so many things that are done so well that a kick in the head, that's great.
Well, speaking of the flashbacks, I think just to keep everyone updated, when we talked about last episode, I talked about how I made my girlfriend watch all of the Karate Kid films and then watch the first episode. And in this case, she's out. She's tapped out, but she just happened to enter the room at the exact time when Daniel-san was seeing these flashbacks. And I could just see in her eyes like, oh yeah, starting with another flashback, eh? And I'm like, no, it's actually good. It's a lost cause, and it's helpful because I get to see, through the eyes of someone who hasn't got this rose-tinted filter that I have. So yeah, I think we're right. We're a little bit blinded.
Well, no, it's tough, man. It's tough that Karate Kid Part 3 really did her in, and because I don't know, I feel like it's unfair. It's unfair to judge Cobra Kai, especially off of Karate Kid Part 3. But
you don't need to tell me, Jim. We've been having this discussion a lot.
But then, of course, we check in with Johnny and Miguel, starting to build the Cobra Kai dojo back up, and we get the show is really good at playing with obviously not just 80s things, because we're checking in with the Karate Kid franchise here in 2018 at the time, but I like how they play around with Johnny, of course, being I guess, is he a boomer? No, is he a boomer?
I don't know, man. You tell me. I guess maybe.
I guess he's not quite a boomer. He's not Gen X though either. Anyways, but they play around with just that idea of being the old guy, and they have fun with that. But I love that they also have fun with the safe space, whatever you want to call it, current day. But being a Karate Kid, there's balance. So it's not that like, what are you triggered, you fucking piece of shit? It's not the cliche version of making fun of that. It's like, we're going to learn from each other. Maybe we take a little bit of this, mix it with a little bit of that, and then we get that balance, and we're on our way to something great.
Yeah, I think you're right, because this is a great scene with, him doing his first lesson, and he does the speech that Kreese does in the films, but what is he doing? Is he on his... no, he's using his inhaler. And interestingly, right, so there's two things where he talks about, like, no, I have asthma, and he's like, asthma doesn't exist in this dojo, and throws it at the wall. Now, that he never uses that again. Spoiler alert, but he stops having asthma. He's like, I have asthma, not anymore, and then he just doesn't. And I would say that this might be some Miyagi-style healing that he's doing through tough love. But then at the same time, in the same scene, he's also like, are we doing a lot of gendered talk right now, or whatever? And that he also, Johnny, of course, doesn't understand and thinks is bullshit. But I feel like that is incorporated into the show. So one thing is tossed aside, but another thing is, no, we are going to re-examine things from the 80s and through a modern lens, and we're making fun of it, but we're also creating characters that hold up more as far as, representation and things that people who talk like that would actually care about.
Yes. Yeah. And well, so do you think it would also work as far as peanut allergies? Is he also, because he says that peanut, like, and other fake crap don't exist here. So if he cures Miguel's asthma, would he also cure someone's peanut allergy if they came into the dojo?
I think he just has a healing touch, and he doesn't know it yet. He just needs to throw something at the wall, and that apparently works. Because, it's just great. It's just hilarious that he never, ever uses that again, as far as I know. Spoiler alert.
and also the goof on Johnny being like so disconnected from the modern world. You'd almost think it would be too much, but I love it, and all the jokes around it make me laugh every single time. Because like when Miguel's phone rings and he's like, "What is that garbage? Do you hear that?" Like,
Yeah.
like he doesn't know what a cell phone is, because he's not only confused that there's bad music playing, but I also genuinely feel like he doesn't know like that a phone is playing a ringtone. Although he does say get a new ringtone later, but I feel like in that moment he doesn't understand what cell phones are.
No, it's definitely played that way, and I reacted to that as well because I was like, "What's clearly a cell phone?" But I guess they didn't have that sound when he was acting it out, and he didn't know what he was listening to. So it's just very comedic. I mean, he is like a lovable fool in this, but he has that one talent of karate that he, as he's saw in his vision or whatever last episode, that like, I have to bring this to the world. It's like my one thing I do well. But yeah, his cluelessness extends to the inspector coming to talk to him about like, oh, this needs a lot of work, and he doesn't even know that he needs a permit or insurance or anything, because like all that's pussy shit, all that SJW shit. We don't need that.
And so now, as far as like, obviously we're in Johnny's point of view for most of this show. We're checking in with Daniel though. But is it that simple, like, getting into storytelling and just story and main characters and sympathetic characters? Is it just that simple to make one person rich and one person poor, that we're immediately like, this poor guy's so noble and great, and this rich guy sucks?
I don't know. That's what they did in the original Karate Kid, so it worked like 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because it's like we flip it. Is that really all it takes? Or, I mean, I guess it's more complicated than that, because also when we're spending time with a character, we're getting more of what makes them who they are. I mean, seeing his stepfather and all that type of stuff. But I guess it kind of, the simplicity here could be like, here's a poor character scraping to get by. We're going to root for him. Here's a rich person or a rich character that doesn't have to struggle as much. They might have their own, collective issues, but clearly those issues don't weigh as much as the poor character, right?
Yeah, I mean, we should write this one down in our writing notebook, because now that you're describing that, I can just, in everything from Jane Austen's Emma up until modern day, that is basically what's depicted. Look at this rich piece of shit and this poor noble person who starves to death in the street. Do we ever do anything about society to change that? No need. It's fine the way it is, but isn't it noble how they're all starving?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I love the health inspector, and he's just got exposed wires, and this cool snake. It's a cobra. Oh, of course, Cobra Kai. Just fun little stuff, because it's more like, again, more things that people don't respect Johnny for, and I kind of like just throwing in doses of reality to the Karate Kid universe help just make like the absurdity shine through and play around with kind of the tongue-in-cheek tone of it. Yeah. Because we can watch Karate Kid 3 and talk about Terry Silver ourselves, but the movie itself is never commenting on it. But at least here they're commenting on like, dude, you're starting a karate dojo and you don't know anything, and you think this is great. And I guess in the meta world sense, it's kind of lame. But when we're on Johnny's side, this is amazing, and this is like the most noble thing he could do.
Yeah, and it matters so much more than all the other stuff in the world, and it's good. Like, that's what we get to see as well in Daniel, that like he has the perfect life. So why does it bother him that someone opens a karate studio? They're like, you can watch this as like a really petty, like, we're adults, but we're clearly like not acting like it because we're just reliving our past through these gyms. We both have opposing gyms that are gonna fight each other. What the fuck? Like, it's so not a mature thing. But then also you get into all the stuff about spirituality, and on the Miyagi-Do side of things, like the spirituality that's helped Daniel become a better person, and then how he's maybe lost his way. And on Johnny's side, of course, how he uses this attitude to help toughen up these kids who are the bottom of the barrel. Sort of, they they get their way to deal with the world, like the fact that the world is shit to them, then you're going to strike first, as the title of this episode says.
Well, and what I'm sorry, go ahead. You go.
I was just going to say that completing the whole reversal that we were talking about from rich to poor, we have Daniel-san in the country club, which is just such an obvious, like, I'd forgotten when we were watching Karate Kid, like, yeah, Daniel-san ends up here. He's on the other side of the aisle.
Yeah, and he kind of gets a shitty son that's an asshole to him.
Yeah.
Because it's like they go out of their way. They show so much, especially just in this episode, that Sam is such a good kid. They never show that. I don't even know his son's name, honestly, but they never show that he's a good kid, really. Maybe if I'm misremembering, maybe later on they do, but I don't remember it. But what I like, I mean, getting more into modern world and the way we look at story, character, and terms and stuff like that, getting into something like toxic masculinity, it's so easy to just make a thing that's like, oh, toxic masculinity, bad, which yes, they're obviously, when you get to the toxic part of it, it is bad. But I appreciate, like, something like this gets into a little bit more that yes, toxic masculinity is bad because obviously Johnny's way of life has led him to where he is.
Yeah.
But also some of what he's teaching these kids, and as we see that he teaches some of these kids, you kind of need to be a little tough as well. Like there's a difference between being like a toxic person and just like standing up for yourself and maybe showing some strength and just being able to like be yourself in the world. I mean, and obviously that people are going to read things into that, and the show starts to explore how it affects different characters different ways and can lead you down certain paths. But I appreciate it when we start to explore it more in the way of like, there's levels of what you may need. So because there are pussies in this world, and sometimes being a pussy's bad, and other times it's okay.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I am tempted to talk about future episodes, but we're trying to keep it kind of spoilerish free, for where we are in the show.
One thing, I mean, I know this is a Cobra Kai Karate Kid. If we get time, because we're still trying to figure out when season 3 is going to be, it could be announced any day now. But if it comes to the point where we've discussed these episodes and we're still waiting for season 3 or post season 3, I would like to discuss the movie The Art of Self-Defense, because it's a dry comic movie that does deal with learning karate and going to a dojo and stuff like that. And I think it would kind of be in line. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Cool. I just Googled it and Jesse Eisenberg's in it, and I have never even heard of it. So
yeah, I think it fits. Obviously it's different, but you got the karate dojo, you got all that stuff that works. It fits.
Very true. So we get to explore a lot of that sort of, well, if one wants to call it masculinity. We're doing a lot of gendering right now, Jim. But if it is masculinity or just in general toughening up that he preaches, we explore that throughout the show.
I would, but I guess I would argue more so specifically Johnny's brand, I think, would be labeled as toxic masculinity.
Oh, yeah. Well, fair.
He might be what he teaches might not, obviously it doesn't always get read that way through maybe Miguel or his students, but I would just say like you'd argue his specific version would probably be labeled as that. I don't want to gender too much here.
No, sure. So what we're seeing a lot of in this episode is Miguel doing all the work, cleaning the windows, like you said, any particular way. I don't give a shit. Clean the toilet before you go. And I think it's only like towards, 20 minutes in or so, he gets to learn how to punch after we've seen his 2 best friends appear in school. I don't want to skip past that because, looking back, I'd forgotten about this, how they first meet, and they're pretty good. I like them as characters.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see them get back in the mix here. And, I don't want to say too much about it.
Yeah, Dimitri and Eli. Miguel is so likable. He's such a great character because one of the toughest things, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more when we get into the next episode. I think one of the toughest things, obviously, is to build up the young cast because we're all watching this because we want to see Johnny and Daniel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Miguel is so likable, and I love the way he immediately latches on to everything Johnny says, and he like is immediately trying to put it to work. Like he immediately wants to go walk up to Sam because Johnny told him. He starts listening to 80s music. Like he's because he's like he plays it well as like not really a meek, like again going back to obviously there's like a Daniel parallel because he's not like a meek nerd, but he's like a nerd.
Yeah,
but he also feels like he's not a cliche. Like he could easily just be a cool kid. Like it's there almost. And the way he kind of like inspires Johnny in a lot of ways is great.
Yeah. He tries to walk up and talk to Daniel's daughter, but it doesn't really work out. And then he gets the punching lesson and he sees a flash of the guy, Kyler, what a great name, of this guy. And the description of like, don't stop here where knuckle hits the bone. Punch him like you're trying to punch the guy behind him. And it is definitely reminiscent of Karate Kid Part 3 when Daniel is learning the Cobra Kai way, because I swear it's pretty quick that he's punching the hell out of this doll with letting all his aggression out, and Johnny's watching it like, good. And I'm like, is this good? Yes, it is good.
And yeah, we got Daniel's dealing with Sam and how Sam's hanging with the cool kids now, and going back to the basics of just being rich. Like we don't know a lot about these kids except they're kind of rich and popular, so we hate them.
Yeah, again, so simple. Why, like, these stereotypes and archetypes or whatever, they're so easy to play around with. Like, I kind of want to see more stories where, like, there's someone who's a loner and doesn't have a lot of money and is kind of a piece of shit. And and it's good to see whenever someone's represented vice versa as well. Like Daniel's daughter, I think she's a good example of someone who's rich and popular and has everything going for her, is essentially a good person. But yeah, it's very good shorthand for the bullies to just have them like be just slightly douchey, and we just know there's more underneath.
Yeah. What's great though is that it's not like they know karate as well or whatever. It's never played as they're like, well, we should know karate. It's like how Cobra Kai is in the Karate Kid movies. They're just kind of typical bullies. And I guess this is somewhat related. Something I think about a lot. Now, so the person who is that bully in real life, when they watch this show, I guess no one sees that part of themselves, right? Like do they identify with that character, or are they still being like, oh, I'm Miguel, even when they're the person who's like terrorizing Miguel?
I think they are Miguel because the people they're terrorizing would maybe be seen as such small side characters in their life. Their real conflict is with their parents or the bigger fish, bigger fish bully or whatever. That's what I assume anyway. Because it'd be hard to watch, any standard story and just cheer for the bad guy. And most stories are made in such a clear sort of black and white way that it's like these tricks of the trade. They make you empathize with the people who have like no money, even if you're born with a fucking silver spoon up your ass.
Maybe that's why there's such the rise of the anti-hero, like a Tony Soprano or a Walter White. Like we need more sociopaths because sociopaths have been watching media and consuming it, and they're like, I just can't relate, my dude. Just like,
yeah, but does that mean we need more of that? Yeah. Maybe anti-heroes who become good guys so they can go like, yeah, I'm a piece of shit now, but I can change. I don't know, Jim.
And then, there's only small touches here, but like we'll get into it more as we get into other episodes. The spirit of Miyagi on this show is handled so well. We see a couple things when Daniel's looking at some of the newspaper clippings and he's got his trophies, and then they tie it in as he's like flashing back to teaching Sam karate and stuff like that. And then even Daniel saying like, I wish, you were here. Give me some of that Miyagi knowledge or wisdom or whatever. Because it feels like a thing that could easily be bungled. But I think there's always proper respect and just the spirit of the character shining through the show, which is nice to see.
Yeah. And I like when they're having sushi. He's such a like nerd talking about the different cuts. You just know the family's heard this shit a bunch of times, and then this guy's visiting. He's like, "Oh no, I don't like fish. Sorry."
Yeah. Do you have fish sticks? No, I don't
Yeah.
have fish sticks. And he did get that knife on his first trip to Okinawa. We were with him there.
Right? Did he? Yeah, I noticed that because I was like, "Ooh, first trip to Okinawa. Maybe he went to see that girl a few times, but then she went to Tokyo, I guess. So never mind. Just went for the beaches, not the bitches."
And I mean, I guess that's the basis of all nostalgia, media that we see a lot of now is this idea. But since I love the Karate Kid so much, I love when things like that happen because it really is like, oh, this is my friend, and we're sharing this memory we had.
Yes.
Me and Daniel Larusso, like that time we went to Okinawa back in the day.
Yeah, there's so much of this when you're like, I feel like it's fine in Cobra Kai, but that's probably because I have that sort of to fall back on that me and my friend Dan went to Okinawa. But but like there's so many things in other media where people just talk about shit and you're like, I guess this was 3 seasons ago, I didn't watch it. Like people are like always pushing those buttons of like this is connected to this, especially in like Marvel films or whatever, where it's like, oh, and it's like a close up of a chess piece, and I'm like, I don't even remember. I don't know where the fuck I'm supposed to feel this emotion from. So
Yeah, no, I agree. It's it works or it doesn't. I feel like here it works. I feel like it's handled properly, and it's almost like just enough of a time frame. And I guess because it's not like the Karate Kid's obviously celebrated, but it's not something that's been in your face like Star Wars or whatever. Where Star Wars, there was one time where it was kind of interesting and fun to play around in that universe again. But now it's not like, it's not interesting. There's so much of, the Clone Wars and then the post-Clone Wars and then the prequels and then whatever. It's not really a special thing to go back and revisit. I feel like this is a good enough property and there's been enough time in between it where it feels different to kind of check back in and see how these characters fare.
For sure. And I mean, we've talked through most of the episode here. So at the end, Daniel seeks out Johnny and goes to the dojo because he's heard from Kyler that he got beaten up by some old, like he obviously hears the Kyler version of the story. And assumes, makes an ass out of himself and Johnny, and goes and they have a bit of banter. But it is very sort of confrontational. Obviously, you go to his place of business and tell him to pack it in, basically, more or less. But he says, this isn't true. And Johnny's like, I'm right here. And it's like, this is so douchey if you think about it.
But it's so perfect. Like the wide shot when they're both on the mat. It's like, yes. Yeah. And they're in the Cobra Kai dojo staring each other down, and there's all this history here. Miguel doesn't know what's going on. He just cleaned the toilet. But now we realize the bad blood's still there, and they even have that last look where he's in his car and Johnny's still inside, and they're still kind of staring each other down. This epic showdown of two business owners living just living as a grown-ass men, but still have that karate beef in their history.
And that's the end of episode 2, which is called Strike First. And I believe if you want to share your thoughts on it, you can send them to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com, or we'd very much appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Spotify, all the cool ones, Stitcher, in addition to the cool ones. That's not one of the cool ones, but it's one of them. You can use it if you want. And beyond that, is there? I think there's just one more thing, Jim. No.
Well, I do want to say that. Okay. I mean, so we are a new podcast, so I mean, whether you're listening to this when we just released it, or even if it's years later, please submit a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. It really helps the show. And we definitely appreciate feedback, but at the very least, submit a review or, rate 5 stars, please, please, please.
Yeah, and obviously we have loads of podcasts at showswhatyouknow.com, and maybe you've already reviewed some of our other casts, but we are releasing these as separate sort of feeds. So this one right now has, it always starts from zero whenever we start a new show, and it totally depends on input from our dear listeners how we go with it. So we'd very much appreciate it.
Yes.
Beyond that, there's just one more thing, Jim.
Oh yeah, wait, what's that?
Strike first.
Strike hard.
No mercy. Nailed it.
Yeah, we did.